Hey everyone, this is Neha from Edureka. I welcome you all to this session on Java Servlets and JSP. Let's take a look at the topics to be covered in this session. First and foremost, I will introduce you the concept of web and then we will see some basics of servlets along with an example. Next, I will talk about generic servlets and how to create it. After that, we will see some advanced concepts of servlets like session tracking and cookies. And moving further, we will understand the fundamentals of JSP and also I will tell you how to create JSP along with an example. And finally, I will wrap up this session by giving you insights about Java Bean class. Without any further ado, let's get started. Before we jump into servlets, let's understand few fundamentals of web. Web consists of billions of clients and servers that are connected through wires and wireless networks. First, web clients make requests to web server. Then what happens? Web server receives a request, finds a response, and returns back the response to the client. When a server answers a request, it usually sends some type of content to the client. The client uses web browser to send requests to the server. And then server often sends response to the browser with a set of instructions that are written in HTML. And all browsers know how to display the HTML page, that is a hypertext markup language page, to the client. So what is web application? A website is a collection of static files, that is HTML pages, images, graphics, etc. And a web application is a website with dynamic functionality on the server. You can say Google, Facebook, Twitter, all these are examples of web applications. So what is the link between web and HTTP? Let's see that now. HTTP is nothing but Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's a protocol that clients and servers use on the web to communicate with each other. It is very similar to other internet protocols like SMTP, that is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and FTP, that is File Transfer Protocol. And HTTP is said to be stateless protocol, that is, it supports only one request per connection. So what does it mean? It means that with HTTP, the clients connect to server to send one request and then they disconnect. This mechanism allows more users to connect to a given server over a period of time. And then client sends an HTTP request and the server answers with the HTML pages to the client using HTTP. Simple. So what is HTTP request and response? HTTP requests can be made using variety of methods, but the one which are widely used are GET and POST. The name itself tells the server what kind of a request is being made and how the rest of the message will be formatted. That is, client sends a request to the server and server responds back to the client using HTML pages. Now, as you have understood some basics of web, let's dive deeper and understand the concept of servlet and what it does. So what are servlets? It can be described in many ways, like it's a technology which is used to create web application. Servlet is an API that provides many interfaces and classes during documentation. It's an interface that must be implemented for creating any servlet. Also, it is a class that extends the capabilities of the servers and responds to the incoming request. That is, it can respond to any kind of requests. And servlet is a web component that is deployed on the server to create a dynamic web page. And it is also robust and scalable. In this figure, you can see client sends a request to the server and server generates a response. And then it analyzes it and sends a response back to the client. So basically, this is how it works. Now, let's move further and see various methods in life cycle of a servlet. First, loading a servlet. When the web server starts up, the servlet container deploys and loads all the servlets. Then what happens? Servlet is initialized by calling the init method. The init method is called by the servlet container to indicate that this servlet instance is instantiated successfully and is about to put into service. Next, the servlet calls service method to process a client's request. This method is invoked to inform the servlet about the client request. And then servlet is terminated by calling the destroy method. Destroy method runs only once during the lifetime of a servlet and it indicates the end of the servlet instance. So basically, init and destroy methods are called only once. And finally, servlet is garbage collected by the garbage collector of JVM. So this is all about the life cycle of a servlet. Now, we will see what are the steps involved to create servlet. First, you have to create a dynamic web project and create a servlet code. Next, you have to add mappings to web.xml file. Then start your server, that is the Apache Tomcat. And last, you can start the web browser and request the servlet. Now we'll see how to create a simple servlet and execute it on the web browser. To create any servlet, you need two important things. That is Eclipse for Enterprise Edition, and the one more thing is your Tomcat, that is Apache Tomcat server. The very first thing you have to do here is you have to configure your Apache Tomcat. You can open your Google Chrome and just simply type Tomcat download version 9. You can select the first link and you can download this zip file or any other file. I prefer zip file. So I have already downloaded the zip file and extracted it in my D drive. You can see here Apache Tomcat folder. So when you extract this, just click on the lib and see the Servlet and JSP API should be present. These are very important. So initially when you open your Eclipse, you can see here that no servers will be present. So you can click on Window, Show View and click on Servers. You can right click here and click on New and click on Server. You can see that there are so many versions of server. I have preferred the latest one, that is 9. You have to just click on Next and Finish. But then you have to configure some environment variables like choose this and apply and close. Also, it will ask for the path like the directory path where you have installed Tomcat. So you just have to copy and paste this path over there and then click on Finish. That's all. After that, you can just double click on this and check the port numbers. You can see here that the Tomcat admin port, the HTTP port, the AJP port, etc. Usually it runs on localhost and followed by your 8080 port number, that is your HTTP port. And you can see it is using Tomcat installation. So I'll just right click on this and click on Start. You can see here the Tomcat server got started. Just open the web browser and type localhost 8080 and click on Enter. You can see the home page of Tomcat. This indicates that your Tomcat server is up and running. Now we'll execute a program. Now, as I have told you, the first thing that you have to do here is click on Dynamic Web Project. Give a project name like Login. Next, always choose Generate Web.xml Deployment Descriptor. Click on Finish. So this is my login project. You can see build, web content, Java resources, etc. In web content, you have meta-inf and web-inf. And in the lib folder, you have web.xml file. This file is very essential as you need to add the mappings to web.xml file for the servlet. I'll show you in the later part how to do that. So first, we will see a basic login example using HTML file. So click on web content, choose new and choose HTML file. I will name this as index.html. Next, finish. So I need to input the details, and that's the reason I'll be creating a form for login. And now I will use a table tag to create a username and password. So this will be my index.html page where in table row I have a table definition for username, that is input type is equal to text and name will be username. And similarly for password as well. If you don't want Verdana, I like to give it as consolas. Save this. And the next step is to create a Java class file. So click on Java resources, give right click on source and choose a new package. I will name my package as Edureka. Finish. Now click on the package and create a new class file. I'll give the name of the class file as login. Finish. So when you get this error, you have to import the package. And now I will write the complete program and then explain you. So here you can see I have used the doPost method and invoking request and response parameters. And then using the print writer method, I'm setting the content type and I'm creating string variables and requesting the parameters for username and password. And I'm giving some conditions like if username and password both are equals to Edureka, then it has to print login as success, else the login should be failed. Simple. Now, the last step is to add the mappings to web.xml file. So here you need to declare the servlet and servlet mappings. And in servlet, we are going to give the servlet name and the servlet class name. And in servlet mappings, we will be giving the servlet name followed by URL pattern. Let's see how. So you can see here I've given the servlet name as login. You can give it as anything, it's fine. But the main important thing that you have to focus here is on servlet class and URL pattern. For servlet class, you have to give your Java class file name, that is login. I'm giving package along with it because package is Edureka, as you can see here. So I'm referring it as edureka.login, and URL pattern will be /login. That will be the one which you have mentioned in form action in your HTML file. Both should be same or else servlet will not work. Save this file. There are so many welcome files which are actually not required. You just need to have the index.html file. Again, save this. Now we are all set for execution. Let's execute the program now. Just right click on the project and click on Run as Run on Server. Finish. Your server is starting as you can see there. So now here you got the basic login page. I have to give username as Edureka and password as Edureka. Only then it says login as success or else it says login as failed. So I'm giving password as Edureka now. You can see here it's saying login as success. Correct? It was printing login as success for 2 times because I have mentioned a statement here that's actually not required. Again, save this. Run the program again. So I'll give both as same. It says login as success. Again, if I give user as Edureka and password something different, it says login as failed. Correct? So basically, this is how you can create a servlet and you can run the program. I hope you got an idea about it. Now I will tell you what is generic servlet and how it works and how it can be created. A generic servlet is a protocol-independent servlet that should always override the service method to handle any client request. And service method accepts 2 arguments, that is, servlet request object and servlet response object. The request object tells the servlet about the request that is made by client, while the response object is used to return the response back to the client. Generic servlet is an abstract class and it has only one abstract method, that is service. And that's the reason when we create generic servlet by extending generic servlet class, we must override service method. So what are the advantages of generic servlet? It is very easy to write and it has very simple lifecycle methods. And to write a generic servlet, you need to extend java x.servlet.generic servlet and you have to override the service method. Now let's see how to create and invoke generic servlet. So I'll modify the same program here. I'll rename the class as generic1. I just renamed the file type to generic1 and then I'll go on writing the code. So generic1 should always extend generic servlet class. Correct? And as I have already mentioned, it should extend generic servlet and override the service method. And then again, I am passing request and response. And then using print writer, I'm trying to print all this. Simple. Save this. And now what will be the changes in index.html file? Let's see that now. So in this index.html file, I'm giving a reference and I'm saying click to call generic servlet. That is, on clicking this link, it has to print this message, that is generic servlet example and welcome to Edureka YouTube channel. Correct? Let's see whether that will happen or not. And the last step is to add the mappings to web.xml file. The only changes will be Edureka will remain as the package and generic1 will be the class name. Instead of servlet name as login, I'll give it as generic servlet. And the URL pattern should be welcome because that is what is being mentioned in the href of index.html. Correct? So again, save this. Now let's run the program and see what will be the output. So I told you it will say click to call generic servlet and on clicking that it will redirect to this page. That is the second welcome page. You can see the URL pattern that we have mentioned and it says generic servlet example and welcome to Edureka YouTube channel. Correct? Simple. I hope you understood the concept of generic servlet. Now let's dive into few concepts of advanced servlets. So I have listed down few classes and interfaces of servlet. First, servlet. This is used to declare lifecycle methods of servlet. Next, servlet config. It allows the servlet to get initialization methods. Servlet context. Using this, it enables the servlet to log the access and access the information. Next, request. You can read the data from client request and you can write the data to client response using servlet response. And generic servlet, it implements servlet and servlet config interface. Input stream, this provides input stream to read requests from the client. And servlet output stream provides the output stream to write responses to the client. Next, servlet exception. It indicates that servlet error has occurred. And when the servlet is not available, it throws unavailable exception. And HTTP request, that is, it provides methods to handle request and response. Similarly, HTTP servlet request enables the servlet to read data from HTTP request. And the response enables the servlet to write data to HTTP response. That's all. Now, let's dive into few concepts of advanced servlets. So here we will understand what is session tracking. Session simply means a particular interval of time. That is, it is a way to maintain the state or data of a user. It is also known as session management in servlet. As you all know that HTTP protocol is stateless, so for that reason we need to maintain the state using session tracking techniques. So as depicted in the picture, you can see, so each time when user requests the server treats the request as a new request. So we need to maintain the state of an user to recognize a particular user. So as HTTP is stateless, each request is considered as new request. So in order to recognize a particular user, we need session tracking. So these are the few techniques of session tracking, that is cookies, URL rewriting, hidden form field, and HTTP session. Among these, let's talk about cookies now. Cookie is a small piece of information that is persisted between the multiple client requests. A cookie has a name, a single value, and optional attributes such as comment, path, domain qualifiers, age, and a version number. So how does cookie work? Again, as it is a technique of session tracking, by default, each request is considered as new request. In cookies technique, we add cookie with a response from the servlet. So that's the reason cookie is stored in the cache of the browser. After that, if the request is sent by the user, cookie is added with the request by default. Thus, we recognize the user as the old user. So these are the useful methods of cookie class, that is public void set max age. This sets the maximum age of the cookies in seconds. And you can use the get name method that returns the name of the cookie, and name cannot be changed after creation. And you can get the value, that is it returns a value. And you can set the name and set the value for cookie as well. We'll see how to do that. So basically, this is how you can create and delete a cookie. That is, you can create a new cookie object. And once you create the new cookie object, you have to add the response for that. That's the usual technique how we do. And similarly, while deleting the cookie, you have to just specify username and specify the blank instead of specifying Edureka. And then you can change the max age to 0 and then again add the response. Simple. Now, let's see an example of creating a cookie, adding the response and retrieving the results. For this, I'll create a new project called cookies. Next, generate this and click on finish. So in this, first let's write the class files. I'll create a new class file called myServlet1 because I'm creating two class files and that's a reason. Click on finish. Now let's write the code. And again, even this should extend HTTP servlet. So here you can see I have created a cookie class, that is myServlet1. I'm just setting the content type and trying to retrieve the name and password, that is request or get parameter, that is a usual thing. And trying to print hello followed by your name and your password will be so and so. You can see here I'm creating two cookies, that is cookie 1 and cookie 2, that is C1 and C2. That will be your username followed by the name, whatever you give in the browser, and the password, that will be your user password. And then the next step is we have to add the response for that. Simple. And I'm using href to link the cookies. Okay, save this. I'll create one more class file that will be myServlet2. Finish. And now let's see what all we have to write in this. So in this, I'm trying to read the cookies, that is request.getCookies, and then displaying the username and value from cookies using the name and value, that will be your getValue methods, and then trying to catch the exception if occurs any in the try block. Save this. And now we will write HTML file in the web content. That will be your again index.html. Here I'm creating a simple form for username and password. And now what is the last step? You have to add the mappings to web.xml file. Let's see that. So in this, first we are again giving the servlet name for first servlet, that is my servlet 1, and then giving the pattern that will be login. And next for servlet 2, that is my servlet 2, and giving the URL pattern as welcome. Very simple. Now we are all set for execution. Let's right click on cookies, that is your project, and click on run on server. Save everything. Next, choose cookies and finish. And now let's run the cookies and see what will be the output. Your server is starting now. So you have to enter the username, whatever you want. I'll give like Edureka only. And I'll give password something. Submit. When you submit, it says, hello Edureka, your password is QWERTY, correct? So it's displaying the username and password for you. Again, when you click on view details, it will redirect you to the second page, that is the welcome page, and says name as Edureka and password will be so and so. So this is how you can request the cookie and get the response back. So that's all about cookies and how it works. So that was all about servlets. Now that you have gained some insights on servlets, let's move ahead and understand what is Java Server Pages, that is JSP. It's a technology used to create web application just like servlet technology. It can be thought of as an extension to servlet because it provides more functionality than servlets such as expression, language, JSTL, etc. It has features like fast development, tracking user, easy to maintain, flexible, powerful, and portable. A JSP page consists of HTML tags and JSP tags. The JSP pages are easier to maintain than servlet because we can separate designing and development. It also provides some additional features such as expression language, custom tags, etc. So what are the advantages of JSP over servlets? JSP is an extension to servlet. We can use all the features of the servlets in JSP. In addition to that, we can also use some implicit objects, predefined tags, expression language, and custom tags that makes JSP development very easy. Next, it is easy to maintain. JSP can be easily managed because we can easily separate our business logic with presentation logic. In servlet technology, it is complicated because we mix up with business logic along with presentation logic. Next, fast development. That is, we don't have to recompile and redeploy. If JSP page is modified, we don't need to recompile and redeploy the project. But the servlet code needs to be updated and recompiled if we have to change the look and feel of the application. Next, it is having less code than servlet. That is very true because in JSP, we can use many tags like action tags, custom tags, JSTL, etc. And that reduces the code. Moreover, we can also use some implicit objects as well. Now let's move further and see the life cycle of JSP. JSP pages involve these following phases, that is translation of JSP page, compilation, class loading, instantiation, initialization, request processing, and destroy. As depicted in the above diagram, JSP page is translated into servlet by the help of JSP translator. And JSP translator is a part of web server which is responsible for translating the JSP page into servlet. After that, servlet page is compiled by the compiler and gets converted into class file. Moreover, all the processes that happen in servlet are performed on JSP like initialization, committing response to the browser, and destroy. So that's how the life cycle of JSP is. Next, we'll see the steps to create JSP. First, again, create dynamic web project. You have to create a JSP file, start Tomcat, and deploy the project and get the output. Simple. I'll show you how to do that. Before that, we'll see some scripting and directive elements. So what are scripting elements? The scripting elements provides the ability to insert Java code inside the JSP. There are three types, that is scriptlet, expression, and declaration. A scriptlet tag is used to execute Java source code in JSP, and the syntax is as shown in the figure. Now we'll see how to print the username using scriptlet tag. So I'll close all this and create a new project. I will name it as JSP and click on next, generate this and click on finish. So in this, what I have to do is I'll configure the build path and add JSP API. Also, I will add Servlet API as well. Apply and close. Now we'll create two files here. One will be HTML file and the other one will be JSP file. First, let's create HTML file and web content. I'll simply create a form for username. So here what I did, I created a simple form and that will be a reference to welcome.jsp, and then input type will be text, and I'm giving a parameter for username, and then submit and go. Save this. Again click on web content and choose new and click JSP file. So here we'll give welcome.jsp because that is a reference which we have given. So that goes to be welcome.jsp. Click on finish. So this is how your JSP file appears. So in this, what we'll do is we'll get the parameter to print the name. Simple, I'll show you how. So that's nothing but your Java source code. So you can enclose the Java source code between these things. So I'm simply using string name is equal to request.get parameter, and I'm printing welcome and followed by your name. Simple. Save this. Let's run the program on server. So it is asking you to enter the name. I'll give Edureka, click on go. It's saying welcome Edureka. Very simple. So what basically happened here is the HTML file gets the username from the user, and the welcome file of JSP prints the username with the welcome message. Simple. So all that we used was two files, that is HTML and welcome. So that's how you can make use of scriptlet tag. Next, we'll see what is expression tag. So in this, the code that is written within the expression tag is written to the output stream of the response. So you need not write out.print to write the data. It is mainly used to print the values of method or variable. So you can use the expression and declaration statement to declare the methods. So one important thing to note here, inside the declaration tag, the code that is placed is outside the service method of auto-generated servlet, so that it does not get any memory at each request. Now let's move further and see some implicit objects of JSP. That is, these are the objects and these are the types of objects. That is, out is of type JSP writer, and request or response are of type HTTP servlet request and response, and config of type servlet config, application of type servlet context, session obviously of type HTTP session, page context, object, and throwable. Having understood these things, let's move further and see the directive elements. So there are three types. One is page directive, one is include directive, and the last one is tag lib directive. So in case of page directive, it defines attributes that applies to an entire JSP page. And the syntax goes very simple for page directive. That will be page directive is equal to value. Simple. Next, the include directive is used to include the contents of any resource, like it may be JSP file, HTML file, or text file. The include directive includes the original content of the included resource at each page translation time. And the advantage of this is code reusability. And coming to tag lib, it is used to define a tag library that defines many tags. And now we'll see some of the implicit objects, like I'll talk about request and response. Let's see how it will work. So the JSP request is an implicit object of type HTTP request that is created for each JSP request by the web container. It can be used to get request information such as parameter, header information, remote address, server name, server port, content type, character encoding, etc. It can also be used to set, get, and remove the attributes from the JSP request scope. Let's see a simple example of implicit object where we are printing the name of the user along with the welcome message. It's very simple, as you have already seen the example of scriptlet tag. It will be same like this. There will be no change in the code nor anything. You have to just create a form action in HTML file, and in the welcome.jsp you have to pass the statements for getting the parameters, that is username, and just use the out.print, like you can say welcome and followed by your name. So this will be same like the one which we have created before in scriptlet tag, that is in index.html. We'll give a reference to welcome.jsp and followed by the username. And again in welcome.jsp, we are writing the Java source code to get the parameter and just print welcome followed by your name. Very simple, and the output remains the same like this. Okay. Now let's see the response implicit object. In JSP, response is an implicit object of type HTTP servlet response, correct? The instance of the HTTP servlet response is created by the web container for each JSP request. It can be used to add or manipulate response, such as redirect the response to another resource, send the errors, etc. let's see the example of response object where we are redirecting the response to the Google page. Let's see how. I'll edit the same thing in index.html. This remains the same. That is, it remains welcome.jsp and this will be text followed by username and this remains the same. In case of welcome.jsp, I'll edit this and I'll write like response.send redirect this to where Google page, correct? So what I did here is, so in HTML page, I'm giving the reference to JSP file, that is welcome.jsp, and here I'm passing the response to Google page. Let's see how. We'll execute this and check the output. So whatever you type here, it redirects to Google page. Okay, I'll give Edureka again. So you can see here, it redirected to the Google page. So again, give Edureka here. You will get the Edureka website. Simple. So all this happened with one click on response object. So it's nothing but it's redirecting the response to Google page. Okay. I hope you understood the request and response implicit objects. Now let's see what is Java Bean class. It's a Java class that should follow following conventions. That is, it should have a no argument constructor. It should be serializable. It should provide methods to set and get the values of the properties known as getter and setter methods. So why do we have to use Java Beans? According to the white paper, it is a reusable software component. A bean encapsulates many objects into one object from multiple places. Moreover, it provides the easy maintenance. So let's see how to access the Java Bean class. So in order to access this, we need to have the setter and getter methods. Let's see how. For now, I will be deleting these two files and I'll show you how to create a Java Bean class. Again, create a new package called Edureka, finish, new class file. That will be your anything. I'm going to create an employee file first. So let's see how that will be. Finish. So let's write the code now. As you can see, I have used the setID and getID method and setName and getName method. And I'm returning these things. So this is how you can implement set and get methods for your Java Bean class. Now what we have to do is we have to access this Bean class. So for that, we again need to invoke the method. That is, we have to create an object of employee. I'll create one more class file and I'll name it as something demo. So in this, what I'll do is I'll create a main method. And in this main method, I'll create an object of this. Let's see how. So I am creating an object of employee and setting the name to Edureka. And then I'm trying to get the name. Simple. Save this and run the program. So on setting the name to Edureka, you can set the value of the object. So basically, this is how you can do that. Next, we'll use useBean, which is the action tag to locate or instantiate a bean class. If the bean object of the bean class is already created, it doesn't create the bean depending on the scope. But if object of bean is not created, it instantiates the bean. Simple. I'll edit the demo.java first. I'll delete this. I don't want that. In this, what I will do is simple. In this, I'm trying to print a cube of a number. And then what I will do, I'll create a JSP file in the web content folder and name it as index.jsp. So in this, I'll call the reference to Java class. So this is how you can use the bean action. That is, use the bean action, ID will be your object and class will be your package.class name. That is edureka.demo. And then you can declare the statements here like I want a cube of 5 and I'll print the result. Simple. So again, click on the project, click on run as run on server. Simple. So here you can see it is printing the cube of 5 is 125. Simple. So this is how you can use the bean action to invoke the class. Save this. And that was all about JSP and for today's session. I hope you learned something out of this. Thank you and have a nice day.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it and you can comment any of your doubts and queries and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!